I'm Miranda, 34, and last Saturday I attended my sister Vanessa's 10th anniversary party. The ballroom sparkled with champagne flutes and laughter as I admired her seemingly perfect marriage. But when I returned from the bathroom, I caught Vanessa's reflection in the window. Her hand hovered over my glass, dropping something inside with a secretive smile. My stomach knotted as childhood memories resurfaced. Without hesitation, I switched my glass with her husband Nathan's. If you've ever faced betrayal from family, where would you draw the line? Like and subscribe to join me on this journey of shattered trust. Growing up with Vanessa wasn't easy. 3 years my senior, she turned everything into a competition. When I made the cheerleading squad in high school, she convinced the captain I had cheated on tryouts. When I brought home my first boyfriend, she mysteriously started tutoring him in chemistry. 2 weeks later, they were dating. Our parents chalked it up to sisterly rivalry, but it felt more sinister than that. Despite everything, I desperately wanted a normal relationship with my only sibling. Every betrayal was followed by tearful apologies and promises to change. I'd forgive her, hoping this time would be different. It never was. When Vanessa met Nathan Calloway during her senior year of college, I was genuinely happy for her. He was kind, successful, and most importantly, he seemed immune to her manipulative tendencies. When they married 3 years later, I stood beside her as maid of honor, truly believing she had finally matured. Over the decade of their marriage, our relationship improved somewhat. We weren't best friends, but we managed civil family gatherings and occasional shopping trips. I convinced myself the past was behind us. Last month, I received a beautifully embossed invitation to their 10th anniversary celebration. The timing couldn't have been better. I had just been promoted to senior account manager at my marketing firm, but my personal life was in shambles after ending a 2-year relationship with a man who couldn't commit. A glamorous party seemed like the perfect distraction. The celebration was held at the Bellevue, the city's most exclusive hotel. Vanessa had spared no expense. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, casting a warm glow over the crowd of about 60 guests. Ice sculptures shaped like swans flanked a champagne fountain. A string quartet played softly in the corner. Our parents, Robert and Susan, greeted me warmly when I arrived. Dad looked uncomfortable in his tuxedo, but beamed with pride watching Vanessa work the room. Mom kept straightening the centerpieces when the staff wasn't looking. "Miranda, you made it." Vanessa air-kissed my cheeks when she spotted me. Her Vera Wang dress probably cost more than my monthly salary. "Love the dress. Rental, right?" she whispered with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "It's great to see you too," I replied, ignoring the jab. "Everything looks amazing." "Well, some of us have successful marriages to celebrate," she said, squeezing my arm just a little too hard. "You'll find someone eventually. Maybe stop being so picky?" Before I could respond, Nathan appeared at my side. Unlike Vanessa, his smile seemed genuine. "Miranda, you look fantastic." He hugged me warmly. "How's the new position treating you?" "It's challenging but exciting," I said, grateful for the subject change. "We need to catch up properly. Save me a dance later." Nathan winked. Vanessa's expression tightened. "Darling, the Andersons just arrived. We should greet them." She practically dragged him away, glancing back at me with narrowed eyes. Throughout the cocktail hour, I mingled with familiar faces. Vanessa's college roommate Bethany mentioned how brave I was for attending solo. Our cousin Tyler, perpetually inappropriate, asked if I was still playing the field. I maintained my smile through it all, nursing a single glass of wine. I noticed something odd as the evening progressed. Nathan kept looking in my direction, his expression unreadable. Whenever he and Vanessa stood together, they maintained physical distance despite the anniversary celebration. When they thought no one was watching, they exchanged tense whispers. Something wasn't right in paradise. During dinner, I was seated at a table with distant relatives and Vanessa's work colleagues rather than at the family table. Nathan frowned when he saw the arrangement, but didn't comment. As servers cleared the entree plates, he suddenly appeared at my side. "Mind if I steal you for a moment?" he asked. "There's someone I want you to meet." Instead of introducing me to anyone, he led me to a quiet corner near the terrace doors. "I needed a break," he confessed. "Vanessa's been on edge for weeks planning this party." "It turned out beautifully," I offered. "Yeah, well, appearances matter most to her." His voice held a bitterness I'd never heard before. "How have you really been, Miranda?" We hardly talk anymore without Vanessa interrupting. Something in his tone made me pause. "Is everything okay between you two? This is a strange conversation to have at your anniversary party." Nathan ran a hand through his hair. 10 years is a long time to maintain a facade. I thought marriage would change her, but some people just. He stopped abruptly, looking over my shoulder. "She's watching us." I turned slightly and caught Vanessa staring, champagne flute clutched so tightly I feared it might shatter. The look in her eyes sent a chill down my spine. "I should get back," Nathan said. "But let's catch up properly soon. I miss having someone normal to talk to." He squeezed my hand and walked away. As I watched him return to his wife, I couldn't shake the feeling that something significant was unfolding beneath the perfectly orchestrated celebration. After my conversation with Nathan, I found myself hyper-aware of every interaction between the anniversary couple. They performed their roles perfectly when the spotlight was on them, sharing tender glances during the anniversary toast and laughing appropriately at the best man's speech about their courtship. But in unguarded moments, I caught glimpses of strained silence and cold stares. During the first dance, Nathan whispered something that made Vanessa's smile falter. When the song ended, she immediately separated from him, making a beeline for her college friends while he retreated to the bar. Curious, I casually positioned myself within earshot of Nathan's conversation with the bartender. "Make it a double," he requested, sliding his empty glass forward. "Rough night?" the bartender asked. "Rough decade," Nathan muttered, before noticing me and straightening his posture. "Miranda, join me for a drink." I accepted his offer, ordering a sparkling water. Pacing myself, I explained. "Long night ahead. Smart woman. Unlike some people I know." He lowered his voice. "Can I confide something?" "Promise it won't get back to Vanessa." I nodded, intrigued. "This marriage is suffocating me. Has been for years." He stared into his scotch. "I've stayed for appearances, family expectations, our shared business interests. But lately, I've been wondering if any of that is worth the constant walking on eggshells." "Have you tried counseling?" I asked, genuinely concerned. 3 different therapists. Each time, Vanessa charms them completely, then refuses to go back when they eventually suggest she might contribute to our problems. He shook his head. "You know how she is better than anyone. The woman the world sees isn't the real Vanessa." The conversation felt inappropriate yet irresistible. "Why are you telling me this?" "Tonight of all nights. Because you're the only person who might actually understand. You grew up with her." Nathan leaned closer. "Last month, I mentioned maybe separating for a while. Just to clear my head." She went ballistic, then suddenly turned eerily calm and suggested this anniversary party instead. Said we needed to remember why we fell in love. A tap on my shoulder interrupted us. Vanessa stood there, her smile tight. What an intense conversation. Sharing old family stories, Nathan. Her eyes darted between us suspiciously. "Just catching up," he replied, draining his glass. "Your sister's company is refreshing." Vanessa's laugh sounded like breaking glass. "Well, the Martins are asking for you. Something about that golf membership." She practically pulled him away from the bar. As they walked off, Vanessa whispered harshly to Nathan. Though I couldn't hear her words, her expression spoke volumes. When she glanced back at me, the hatred in her eyes was unmistakable. Needing a moment alone, I headed to the restroom. The quiet sanctuary gave me space to process Nathan's revelations. Had Vanessa's competitive nature escalated to something more dangerous within her marriage? The thought made me uneasy. After touching up my makeup, I returned to the ballroom. The celebration had shifted to dancing, with clusters of guests twirling across the floor. I spotted our parents swaying gently to a slow song, looking content. Making my way to my assigned table, I noticed my champagne glass had been refilled in my absence. Beside it sat a beautiful chocolate-covered strawberry on a napkin, with my name elegantly written on the corner. A small card read, "For my favorite sister. Love, V." The gesture seemed oddly conciliatory given the tension earlier. As I reached for the glass, movement in the large ornate window beside me caught my eye. The reflection showed Vanessa standing several feet behind me, watching intently. She didn't realize I could see her. In the reflection, I witnessed my sister approach my table, glance around furtively, then reach into her clutch. Her hand emerged with something small that she quickly dropped into my champagne. The object dissolved almost instantly. Her lips curved into a satisfied smile before she disappeared into the crowd. My blood ran cold. What had she put in my drink? And why? My mind raced through possibilities, each more disturbing than the last. I remembered a disturbing incident from college. Vanessa's roommate had been offered the internship Vanessa wanted. The night before the roommate's first day, she became violently ill after a celebration dinner Vanessa had prepared. The illness lasted just long enough for Vanessa to contact the company and offer to step in temporarily. The temporary arrangement became permanent. Vanessa had never admitted to anything, but the timing was too convenient to be coincidental. I'd convinced myself it was an isolated incident, a product of youthful ambition rather than malice. Now, staring at my contaminated champagne, I realized I'd been naive. Whatever rivalry she felt toward me had never disappeared, merely gone underground. But what was her motivation now? I was no threat to her marriage, despite Nathan's confiding in me. Unless she thought I was. The realization hit me like a physical blow. Vanessa had seen Nathan talking with me, perhaps even overheard parts of our conversation. In her mind, that might constitute betrayal. She'd always been possessive of her relationships, pathologically so. I carefully examined my champagne, tilting it slightly under the ambient lighting. A faint residue clung to the inside of the glass, nearly imperceptible unless you were looking for it. Whatever she'd added had dissolved almost completely. My heart pounded as I considered my options. Confronting her publicly would create a scene and might be dismissed as sisterly drama. Confronting her privately might put me at risk if she was desperate enough to drug me. Ignoring the situation seemed dangerous. I needed to understand what I was dealing with, and more importantly, I needed evidence of what she'd done. My fingers trembled slightly as I considered my next move. The champagne glass sat before me, its contents potentially dangerous. Guests swirled around the ballroom, oblivious to the drama unfolding at my quiet corner table. What had Vanessa put in my drink? I doubted it was lethal, knowing my sister's calculating nature. More likely something to embarrass me, perhaps make me sick or behave inappropriately. Vanessa had always preferred psychological torture to physical harm. Either way, I had no intention of finding out firsthand. I needed to gather evidence while protecting myself. A plan formed in my mind, risky but necessary. If I could switch glasses with someone, I could observe the effects while avoiding them myself. But with whom? The answer came immediately. Nathan. The symmetry felt appropriate. If Vanessa intended to hurt me because of her jealousy over Nathan's attention, letting him experience her duplicity seemed fitting. More importantly, as her husband, he deserved to know what she was capable of. Executing the switch would require perfect timing. I scanned the room and spotted Nathan near the gift table, temporarily alone. Vanessa was across the room, engrossed in conversation with her in-laws. This might be my only opportunity. I stood, casually lifting my contaminated glass. Nathan, I called as I approached. We should make a toast to the happy couple. He looked up, surprised. Another one? Haven't we had enough speeches tonight? Not a public toast, I clarified, standing close. Just between us. To 10 more years. I raised my glass slightly. He shrugged, reaching for his half-empty whiskey tumbler from the nearby table. Why not? Though I'm not sure I'll survive another decade. I positioned myself between Nathan and the rest of the room, using my body to shield my actions. Actually, I said, speaking louder than necessary, champagne seems more appropriate for toasting than whiskey. Would you mind swapping? Just for the toast. Before he could properly respond, I placed my champagne flute in his hand and took his whiskey. The move was smooth, practiced, like we'd rehearsed it. To happiness, I said meaningfully, and to truth, whatever it might reveal. Nathan looked confused, but played along, touching his glass to mine. To truth, he echoed, then sipped the champagne. I pretended to drink the whiskey, merely wetting my lips. Over Nathan's shoulder, I caught Vanessa watching us, a satisfied smile playing on her lips when she saw me drinking the champagne. She didn't realize the switch had occurred. Everything okay? Nathan asked, noticing my tense expression. Perfect, I assured him. But you might want to finish that champagne before Vanessa comes over. She seemed annoyed we were talking earlier. He rolled his eyes, but complied, draining the glass in one long swallow. Happy now? I should get back to mingling. 10 years of marriage means at least 40 hands to shake tonight. I nodded, watching him carefully for any immediate reactions. Nothing yet. Thanks for humoring me. As Nathan walked away, I discreetly set his whiskey down on a passing server's tray, unwilling to consume anything that had been unattended at this party. Vanessa approached me almost immediately. Enjoying yourself? She asked, her voice honey-sweet while her eyes assessed me for signs of whatever she expected. Absolutely, I replied evenly. Your husband was just keeping me company. Such a thoughtful man. A flash of anger crossed her features before she controlled it. Yes, Nathan's always been overly accommodating to everyone. A weakness of his, really. I wouldn't call kindness a weakness, I countered. Vanessa's smile turned predatory. You seem remarkably steady on your feet. Champagne, not to your liking. The confirmation of her intentions sent ice through my veins. It was delicious. Nathan thought so too when we traded drinks for our toast. For a split second, genuine confusion replaced her smug expression. Then understanding dawned, followed by alarm. You what? Traded drinks, I repeated innocently. Is there a problem? You had no right, she hissed, her composure cracking. You don't understand what you've done. Actually, I think I understand perfectly, I replied, keeping my voice level. The question is, does Nathan? Vanessa's face paled. Her eyes darted across the room, locating her husband who is now talking with our parents. This isn't over, she warned before hurrying away. I maintained my calm exterior while processing what had just happened. Vanessa had confirmed my suspicions without realizing it. Now I needed to watch carefully to understand what I'd saved myself from and what Nathan would experience instead. Over the next 30 minutes, I observed subtle changes in Nathan's behavior. His movements became less coordinated. He loosened his tie, complaining of heat. During a conversation with my father, he lost his train of thought mid-sentence. When the band played a popular dance song, he enthusiastically joined the dance floor, his movements uncharacteristically uninhibited. Vanessa hovered nearby, repeatedly trying to steer him toward the exit. Darling, you're tired. We should thank everyone and leave, I overheard her saying. Nonsense. Nathan replied too loudly. I'm having a wonderful time. First time tonight, actually. He twirled away from her, rejoining the dancing crowd. I maintained a safe distance, watching the situation unfold while considering my next steps. Whatever Vanessa had used wasn't immediately debilitating, but it was definitely affecting Nathan's inhibitions and coordination. Combined with the alcohol he'd already consumed, the effects were amplifying quickly. Vanessa cornered me near the dessert table, her carefully crafted image fracturing. What have you done? She demanded, voice quivering. I didn't do anything, I replied calmly. I simply avoided drinking whatever you put in my glass. Nathan, unfortunately, wasn't so lucky. You saw nothing, she insisted, desperation evident. I saw everything, Vanessa. The reflection in the window showed you quite clearly. Her expression hardened. It was just a mild sedative. To help you relax. You've been so tense lately. A sedative? In my drink without my knowledge? That's assault, possibly worse if combined with alcohol. Don't be so dramatic, she scoffed. I was trying to help. You've been miserable since Jackson dumped you. The mention of my ex stung, but I refuse to be baited. We both know that's not true. You saw Nathan talking to me and jumped to conclusions. Your jealousy is pathological, Vanessa. Her eyes narrowed. He's my husband. You were hanging on his every word, looking at him with those sad, lonely eyes. Did you think I wouldn't notice? The truth of her distorted perception hit me. You seriously think I'm interested in Nathan? He's my brother-in-law. Men are easily manipulated by attention from new women, she spat. Even sisters. Before I could respond, a crash from the dance floor drew our attention. Nathan had stumbled into the gift table, sending carefully wrapped packages tumbling. His speech was slurred as he apologized profusely, attempting to right the fallen gifts, but making the situation worse. This is your fault, Vanessa hissed before rushing to damage control. I stood frozen, watching the scene unfold. My impulsive decision had created consequences I hadn't fully anticipated. As concerned murmurs spread through the crowd, I realized the night was about to implode spectacularly. The elegant anniversary celebration deteriorated rapidly after Nathan's collision with the gift table. At first, guests assumed he'd simply had too much to drink, an embarrassing but forgivable offense at his own party. Vanessa managed to guide him to a chair, whispering fiercely in his ear while maintaining a strained smile for onlookers. Just need some water, Nathan announced loudly, his words running together. Feeling weird all of a sudden, our father approached, concern etched on his face. Everything all right, son? Perhaps some fresh air would help. Nathan attempted to stand but swayed dangerously. Room spinning. Wasn't even drinking much. His confused gaze found me across the room. Miranda? When did you get a twin? A ripple of uncomfortable laughter moved through the nearby guests. Vanessa's face flushed with humiliation as she struggled to maintain control of the situation. Darling, you're exhausted. We should call it a night, she urged, trying to help him up. Nathan shook his head vigorously, nearly toppling over. No, don't want to go home with you. You're always watching, controlling. His voice had risen, drawing more attention. Mortification flashed across Vanessa's features. Nathan, please. You're not yourself. Maybe I am myself. First time in years without the mask, he slurred, gesturing wildly. 10 years pretending. I'm tired of pretending. Guests began exchanging concerned glances. The band awkwardly continued playing, though many had stopped dancing to watch the unfolding drama. Nathan suddenly lurched to his feet. Need bathroom, he mumbled before stumbling in that direction. He made it halfway before collapsing against a waiter, sending a tray of champagne flutes crashing to the floor. Oh my God, gasped a woman nearby. Is he having a stroke? The question sent a wave of panic through the crowd. My mother rushed forward, her nursing background taking over. Nathan, look at me. Can you tell me what day it is? His response was unintelligible. Mom looked up at Vanessa. Has he taken any medication today? Mixed anything with alcohol? Vanessa shook her head, but her eyes betrayed her. They darted toward me momentarily, filled with accusation and fear. I think we should call an ambulance, Mom announced. Better safe than sorry. No, Vanessa protested too quickly. He's just had too much to drink. We don't need to make a scene. This is already a scene, Dad pointed out. The man can barely stand. As the argument continued, I approached Nathan, who was now sitting on the floor, back against the wall, eyes unfocused. I knelt beside him. Nathan, did you consume anything unusual tonight? Besides alcohol? He blinked slowly, trying to focus on my face. Just drinks. And that champagne. With you. After that, everything went sideways. Vanessa appeared at my side, practically pushing me away. Stop interrogating him. This isn't helping. Actually, it might help the paramedics to know what's in his system, I replied evenly. Her eyes widened in panic. There's nothing in his system. You're being ridiculous. By this time, the hotel manager had been alerted to the situation. We've called emergency services, he informed us discreetly. They should arrive shortly. Would you like to move Mr. Calloway somewhere more private? With help from 2 waiters, Nathan was relocated to a small conference room adjacent to the ballroom. The celebration effectively ended as concerned guests began gathering their belongings, whispering among themselves. My parents insisted on accompanying Nathan and Vanessa to the private room, with me following close behind. Once the door closed, providing privacy from curious eyes, Vanessa rounded on me. This is your fault, she accused. You switched the glasses deliberately. What glasses? Mom asked, confusion evident. What is she talking about, Miranda? I met Vanessa's gaze steadily. Why don't you tell them what you put in my champagne? You did what? Dad's voice boomed in the small room. Vanessa's composure cracked entirely. It was just a mild sedative. Nothing dangerous. She's been so stressed lately, I thought it would help her relax and enjoy the party. You drugged your sister? Mom's voice was barely a whisper, horror evident in every syllable. And then I switched our glasses, I admitted. I saw her do it in the reflection. I didn't know what it was, but I wasn't about to drink it. So you gave it to Nathan instead? Dad demanded, his disappointment now directed at me. I needed to know what she'd done, I explained. And he deserved to know what his wife is capable of. Nathan, still disoriented but following the conversation, looked up at Vanessa. You drugged her drink? Why would you do that? Vanessa's face crumpled. You were paying so much attention to her, confiding in her, looking at her the way you used to look at me. She's my sister-in-law, Nathan mumbled. I was just talking. It's never just talking with her, Vanessa insisted. She's always wanted what's mine. Always. The paramedics arrived before the argument could escalate further. As they assessed Nathan, one asked directly about substances in his system. He may have unknowingly consumed a sedative, I informed them. Mixed with alcohol. The female paramedic's expression hardened. Do you know what kind of sedative? All eyes turned to Vanessa, who seemed to shrink under the scrutiny. Ativan, she finally admitted. Just 1 pill. It's prescribed to me for anxiety. Ma'am, mixing benzodiazepines with alcohol can be extremely dangerous, the paramedic said severely. We need to transport him to the hospital immediately for monitoring. Will he be okay? Mom asked, her anger temporarily replaced by concern. Most likely, but we need to watch for respiratory depression. The combination can be life-threatening in some cases. The gravity of the situation descended on the room. Vanessa began sobbing. I never meant for him to take it. It wasn't supposed to be dangerous. But you meant for me to take it, I reminded her. Not knowing it was there, mixing with whatever I was drinking. The male paramedic looked up sharply. Was this intentional drugging? Yes, I stated firmly, despite Vanessa's pleading look. That's potentially a criminal offense, he informed us. The hospital will likely need to report this to police. As they prepared to transport Nathan, he reached for my hand. Thank you, he whispered, for seeing the truth. All of it. The simple statement carried the weight of years of hidden suffering. I squeezed his hand gently before they wheeled him away. In the aftermath, the conference room fell silent except for Vanessa's quiet sobs. My parents stood shell-shocked, processing the evening's dramatic turn. I think, Dad finally said, we need to have a very serious family discussion. But not tonight. Let's make sure Nathan is stable first. Mom nodded, then turned to Vanessa. You should go to the hospital. He's still your husband, whatever else has happened tonight. Vanessa gathered herself, wiping her tears. This isn't over, she murmured as she passed me. No, I agreed quietly. It's just beginning. The hospital waiting room fluorescent lights cast a harsh glow over our family's fractured facade. Dad paced relentlessly while Mom sat rigidly, her expression unreadable. Vanessa had been permitted to join Nathan once the doctors began treatment, leaving me alone to face my parents' mixed emotions. I still can't believe what happened. Mom finally broke the silence. Both of you. My own daughters. I didn't drug anyone, I reminded her gently. No, but you deliberately gave a drugged drink to Nathan, Dad countered, stopping his pacing momentarily. You could have just poured it out. And then what? I asked. Vanessa would have denied everything. I needed proof of what she'd done. At what cost? Mom's voice cracked. Using Nathan as your guinea pig? The question stung because it contained a kernel of truth. I had made a split-second decision with potentially dangerous consequences. I didn't know what she'd used, I admitted. I assumed it was something to make me look foolish, not something potentially lethal when mixed with alcohol. Before my parents could respond, a doctor in blue scrubs approached. Family of Nathan Calloway? We all stood. How is he? Dad asked. Stable, the doctor assured us. We've administered fluids and are monitoring his vital signs. The combination of lorazepam and alcohol could have been much more serious, but fortunately, the dose wasn't extremely high. Relief washed over us collectively. When can he go home? Mom inquired. We'll keep him overnight for observation. Standard protocol with benzodiazepine and alcohol interactions. The doctor's expression turned serious. I understand there are unusual circumstances surrounding how Mr. Calloway ingested the medication. Hospital policy requires us to report suspected intentional drugging to authorities. Dad nodded grimly. We understand. Thank you, doctor. After he left, we settled back into uncomfortable silence. Eventually, Vanessa emerged from the treatment area, her makeup streaked down her face, designer dress wrinkled. He's resting, she informed us, avoiding eye contact. They've given him something to counteract the effects. Vanessa, Mom began cautiously. What were you thinking? My sister collapsed into a chair, all pretense abandoned. I don't know. I saw how he looked at Miranda. How they were whispering together. It triggered something in me. So your solution was to drug your sister? Dad's incredulity was palpable. It wasn't supposed to harm her. Vanessa insisted. Just make her a little disoriented. Maybe say something embarrassing. I wanted her to stop being so perfect in everyone's eyes. The absurdity of her statement momentarily stunned me. Perfect? You think people see me as perfect? Everyone does. Poor, sweet Miranda who always gets the raw deal from her mean older sister. Miranda who never does anything wrong. Vanessa's bitterness spilled out. Even tonight, after what you did to Nathan, they're still more angry with me. Because you committed a crime, I pointed out. Because you've been doing things like this our entire lives. What does that mean? Mom asked, looking between us. I hesitated, then decided the time for protecting Vanessa had passed. Remember when Vanessa's college roommate got violently ill before her first day at that prestigious internship? The one Vanessa miraculously stepped in to fill. Vanessa's face drained of color. That was different. It was just food poisoning. Was it? I challenged. Or did you ensure she couldn't take the position you wanted? You can't prove anything, she whispered. I don't need to. Tonight proves the pattern. A police officer entered the waiting room, interrupting our confrontation. After identifying himself, he explained he needed statements from everyone involved. One by one, we were interviewed in a small consultation room. When it was my turn, I recounted everything exactly as it had happened. The officer's expression remained neutral throughout, but he took detailed notes. Will charges be filed? I asked when I'd finished. That depends on several factors, he explained, including whether Mr. Calloway wishes to press charges against his wife. Administering a controlled substance without consent is a serious offense. The interview complete, I returned to the waiting room. Hours passed in tense silence before a nurse informed us that Nathan was awake and asking for me specifically. Vanessa started to object, but the nurse was firm. The patient requested to speak with Miranda alone. Following her to Nathan's room, I was struck by how vulnerable he looked connected to monitoring equipment. His complexion was ashen, his normally perfect hair disheveled. "Hey there," I said softly, approaching his bedside. "Some anniversary party, huh?" His attempt at humor fell flat, his voice raspy. "I'm so sorry, Nathan. I never intended for you to get hurt." He waved away my apology. "You exposed the truth. That's worth a night in the hospital. The police are taking statements. They mentioned potential charges." Nathan sighed deeply. "That's actually why I wanted to talk to you. I need you to understand something." He shifted, wincing slightly. This isn't the first time Vanessa has done something like this. My blood ran cold. "What do you mean?" "Not drugging, specifically, but the controlling behavior, the jealousy, the manipulation. It's been our entire marriage." His eyes met mine, filled with a sadness I'd never noticed before. "About 2 years ago, I started keeping records. Conversations, incidents, things that made me question my own sanity." "You've been documenting her behavior?" He nodded. "My therapist suggested it. To confirm I wasn't imagining things. The recordings, the journal entries, they paint a clear picture of emotional abuse." The term hung heavy in the hospital room. I'd suspected Vanessa was difficult, competitive, even malicious at times, but abuse was a word I'd never associated with my sister. "Why stay?" I asked quietly. "Fear, mostly. Not physical fear. Fear of failure, of public humiliation. Our finances are completely entangled through the business. And part of me still loves the woman I thought I married." He closed his eyes briefly. Tonight changed everything. She crossed a line that can't be uncrossed. A nurse entered to check his vital signs, temporarily halting our conversation. After she left, Nathan continued, his voice stronger. "I'm not going to press charges. Nathan, what she did was criminal. I know, but a public legal battle would destroy both our lives. What I am going to do is separate from her. Immediately." His determination was evident. "I wanted you to know because I'll need allies. People who understand what she's capable of." The weight of his trust settled on my shoulders. "Of course. Whatever you need." "Thank you." He squeezed my hand. "For seeing the truth. For having the courage to act on it. If you hadn't switched those glasses, I might have spent another decade in that marriage, slowly losing myself." As I left Nathan's room, the magnitude of the evening's revelations washed over me. My sister wasn't just competitive or jealous, she was potentially dangerous. The facade of her perfect marriage had completely shattered, revealing something darker beneath. In the waiting room, I found Vanessa alone, my parents having gone to find coffee. "How is he?" she asked, a complex mixture of emotions in her voice. "Awake. Talking. Reconsidering his entire marriage." She flinched at my bluntness. "Did he tell you he's going to press charges?" "No. But he did tell me he's leaving you." The color drained from her face. "He can't. We're partners in everything. The business, the house, our entire lives." "You should have thought about that before drugging my drink," I replied simply. Vanessa's eyes filled with fresh tears. "I didn't mean for this to happen." "You never do. But you keep making choices that hurt people, Vanessa." At some point, the excuses stopped mattering. As my parents returned with coffee, a heavy silence fell over our fractured family. The night's events had torn away any pretense of normalcy, exposing truths that could never be reburied. 1 week after the disastrous anniversary party, our family gathered at my parents' home. The invitation, delivered via my father's stern phone call, made attendance non-negotiable. Sunday dinner. 2 o'clock. Everyone will be there, and we're going to talk about what happened. No excuses. The familiar suburban house felt different as I approached the front door. Childhood memories of running through the sprinklers with Vanessa, building blanket forts in the living room, and holiday celebrations filled with laughter seemed to belong to different people entirely. Mom answered my knock, enveloping me in a tight hug before ushering me inside. "Your father's in the dining room. Vanessa's already here." The formal dining room, typically reserved for Thanksgiving and Christmas, signaled the gravity of the occasion. Dad sat at the head of the table, posture rigid. Vanessa occupied a chair to his right, eyes downcast. An untouched glass of water sat before her. "Where's Nathan?" I asked, noticing his absence. "Not coming," Dad answered. "This is family only today. We'll deal with the marriage situation after we address what happened between you two." I took a seat opposite Vanessa, maintaining a safe distance. Mom completed our square, settling beside me with a supportive pat on my arm. "I've spent 58 years on this earth," Dad began, his professor voice in full effect. "I've taught thousands of students, written books on conflict resolution, and counseled countless couples through difficult times. But never did I imagine I'd need to mediate between my own daughters over something like this." Vanessa stared at her hands folded in her lap. I maintained eye contact with Dad, accepting his disappointment without flinching. "Vanessa," he continued, turning toward my sister. "What you did was not only illegal but deeply disturbing. I need to understand why." My sister's carefully constructed facade had crumbled since the hospital. Without her designer clothes and perfect makeup, she looked smaller somehow, vulnerable. "I don't have a good explanation," she admitted, voice barely above a whisper. "Try," Mom encouraged, gentler than Dad, but equally firm. Vanessa took a shaky breath. "I've always felt like I had to fight for everything. For attention, for success, for love. Nothing ever came easily to me the way it seemed to for Miranda." I started to protest, but Dad silenced me with a look. When I saw Nathan talking to her, something just snapped. Tears welled in Vanessa's eyes. "Our marriage has been struggling for years." He's been distant, critical. When he looked at Miranda with such interest, such ease, I felt replaced. Again. "So you decided to drug your sister?" Dad's question hung in the air. I wasn't thinking clearly. I just wanted her to stop being so perfect for one night. To show everyone she isn't always the good one. Vanessa wiped at her tears. "The pill was supposed to make her loopy, maybe say embarrassing things. I never intended for Nathan to take it instead." "Whether Nathan or Miranda took it doesn't change your intent," Mom pointed out. "You deliberately tried to harm your sister." "I know," Vanessa whispered. "I know it was wrong. I've been seeing a therapist every day this week. She thinks I may have borderline personality disorder with narcissistic features." The clinical terms seemed to hang in the air between us. "That might explain some of your behavior, but it doesn't excuse it," Dad said firmly. "I understand that. I'm not asking for excuses." Vanessa finally looked up, meeting my eyes directly. "Miranda, what I did was unforgivable. I've spent my life competing with you, resenting you, trying to take what you had instead of appreciating what I had. I'm truly sorry." In 34 years, I'd never heard Vanessa offer a genuine apology. Part of me wanted to accept it immediately, to return to the sisterly relationship I'd always craved. But another part, perhaps the wiser part, recognized this pattern. "I appreciate your apology," I said carefully. "But I need more than words this time, Vanessa. This wasn't a childhood squabble or petty jealousy. You could have seriously harmed me, and you did harm Nathan." "I know," she acknowledged. "I'm committed to getting help. Real help this time." "Nathan told me this wasn't an isolated incident," I continued, watching her reaction carefully. "He described a pattern of controlling behavior throughout your marriage." Vanessa flinched but didn't deny it. "We both contributed to the dysfunction. But yes, I recognized my behavior was problematic. That's an understatement. Dad interjected. He's moved out, Vanessa. Filed for legal separation according to your mother's friend at the courthouse. Fresh tears spilled down my sister's cheeks. I know. He won't return my calls. His lawyer handles all communication now. Can you blame him? Mom asked gently. No, Vanessa admitted. I destroyed his trust. Maybe beyond repair. The conversation continued for hours, peeling back layers of resentment, jealousy, and dysfunction that had characterized our family dynamic for decades. Mom and Dad acknowledged their role in enabling Vanessa's behavior, having dismissed her competitive nature as normal sibling rivalry rather than addressing the deeper issues. As the afternoon sun began to set, casting long shadows across the dining room, I finally voiced the question that had been forming throughout our conversation. Where do we go from here? Dad leaned back in his chair, exhaustion evident in his features. That depends on all of us, but especially you two. Vanessa looked at me tentatively. I'd like to rebuild if you're willing. I understand if you're not. For the first time in our adult lives, I saw genuine vulnerability in my sister's eyes. Not manipulation, not calculation, just raw emotional honesty. I can't pretend this never happened, I told her. And I can't immediately trust you again. I understand, she nodded, accepting my boundaries. But I continued, I'm willing to try family therapy, to see if there's something worth salvaging between us. Relief washed over Vanessa's face. Thank you. That's more than I deserve. It's not about deserving, I clarified. It's about choosing to break unhealthy patterns instead of perpetuating them. As we prepared to leave, Vanessa approached me in the hallway. Nathan's lawyer delivered divorce papers yesterday, she confided. He's citing emotional abuse and the drugging incident. Are you contesting it? I asked, studying her reaction. She shook her head. No, he deserves his freedom. I just hope someday he can forgive me, even if we never reconcile. The admission surprised me. Perhaps the therapy was already having an effect. One day at a time, I offered, not quite ready for physical contact, but acknowledging her pain with a nod. As I drove home that evening, I reflected on how quickly life could change. 1 week ago, I'd attended what should have been a celebration of love and commitment. Instead, it had exposed decades of dysfunction and set us all on entirely new paths. Nathan had called me earlier that day, sounding stronger and more decisive than I'd ever heard him. He'd moved into a downtown apartment and was seeing his own therapist to process the relationship trauma. For the first time in years, I'm making my own choices, he'd told me. It's terrifying and exhilarating at the same time. I understood exactly what he meant. Setting boundaries with Vanessa, refusing to minimize her actions, felt like reclaiming pieces of myself I hadn't realized were missing. The road ahead would be difficult, but at least it would be honest. 6 months passed before I agreed to meet Vanessa one-on-one. We chose neutral territory, a quiet cafe downtown, each arriving separately. I spotted her at a corner table, absent were the designer labels and perfect makeup that had once been her armor. Instead, she wore simple jeans and a sweater, hair pulled back in a casual ponytail. Thank you for coming, she said as I sat across from her. I wasn't sure you would. I almost didn't, I admitted. Our family therapy sessions are one thing, with Mom and Dad as buffers. This feels different. Vanessa nodded in understanding. I appreciate your honesty. That's something my therapist keeps emphasizing, the importance of truth even when it's uncomfortable. The months of intensive therapy had changed her in subtle but significant ways. The competitive edge that had defined her for decades had softened. She made eye contact differently now, more direct yet less challenging. How are you really doing? I asked, genuinely curious about her journey. Some days are better than others, she confessed. The diagnosis helped make sense of patterns I've struggled with my whole life. Borderline personality disorder explains the emotional instability, the fear of abandonment, the black and white thinking. but understanding it is just the first step. And the treatment? Dialectical behavior therapy twice weekly. Medication for anxiety. A lot of journaling. She stirred her tea absently, learning to sit with uncomfortable emotions instead of immediately reacting to them. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. I nodded, acknowledging her efforts. And the divorce? A flash of pain crossed her features. Finalized last month. Nathan was fair in the settlement, more than fair considering everything. We sold the house, divided the business assets. Clean break. Do you still talk to him? Only through lawyers, by his choice. I respect that boundary now. Vanessa looked up, meeting my eyes directly. He's seeing someone new. Did you know? I hesitated before answering truthfully. Yes, we've kept in touch. Coffee every few weeks. Rather than the jealous reaction I might have expected before, Vanessa simply nodded. Good. He deserves happiness. I'm glad he has a friend who understands what he went through. The simple statement, delivered without resentment, illustrated how much had changed. What about you? She asked. Mom mentioned you're dating someone? Early stages, I confirmed. His name is Daniel. Elementary school principal. Completely different from anyone I've dated before. Different how? I considered the question. Emotionally available. Direct about what he wants. No games. I smiled slightly. He has healthy boundaries, which I'm learning to appreciate more and more. That's really great, Miranda. You deserve that kind of relationship. The sincerity in her voice touched something in me. For perhaps the first time in our adult lives, Vanessa seemed genuinely happy for my happiness, without comparison or competition. As our conversation continued, we carefully navigated the new terrain of our relationship. There were awkward moments, old patterns that threatened to resurface, but we both recognized them more quickly now. I've been thinking a lot about that night, Vanessa said eventually. Trying to understand what I was thinking, how I justified something so terrible to myself. And the borderline thinking was definitely part of it, the black and white perspective where I saw you as a threat to my marriage. But it was more than that. She took a deep breath. I've spent my entire life feeling like I wasn't enough. Not pretty enough, not smart enough, not worthy enough of love. Instead of addressing that emptiness, I tried to fill it by taking what others had or by proving I was better. The vulnerability in her admission was palpable. The irony, she continued, is that by trying to control everything and everyone around me, I lost the things that mattered most. My marriage, your trust, my self-respect. I reached across the table, not quite taking her hand, but reducing the distance between us. You're doing the work now. That counts for something. Thank you, she whispered. I know I have a long way to go. I may never fully deserve your forgiveness. Forgiveness isn't about deserving, I said, echoing the wisdom I'd gained through my own therapy. It's a choice I make for my own peace. I'm not there yet, but I'm working on it too. As we prepared to leave, Vanessa hesitated. There's something else I wanted to tell you. I've been offered a job in Seattle. A fresh start, away from all the memories and people I've hurt here. The news surprised me. Are you going to take it? I think so. My therapist believes geographical distance might help establish new patterns while continuing treatment virtually. She smiled sadly. Plus, it gives everyone here space for me while I continue healing. When would you leave? Next month, if I accept. I wanted to tell you in person. She fidgeted with her purse strap. I'm not running away, Miranda. I'm trying to be responsible about my recovery. I considered her words carefully. I think it might be good for you. A chance to define yourself outside of our family dynamics. Relief washed over her features. That's exactly it. Thank you for understanding. As we said goodbye on the sidewalk outside the cafe, Vanessa hesitated before asking, would it be okay if I hugged you? The question, so careful of my boundaries, demonstrated more growth than any therapy update could have. I nodded, allowing a brief embrace before stepping back. Take care of yourself, Vanessa. You too, Miranda. I'll keep in touch if that's okay. One step at a time, I replied honestly. Driving home, I reflected on everything that had happened since that fateful anniversary party. One impulsive, terrible decision had set off a chain reaction, bringing painful truths to the surface, but ultimately forcing necessary change. Nathan had emerged stronger from the dissolution of his marriage, finally free to pursue his own happiness. My parents had confronted their role in enabling destructive family patterns and were working to change them. Vanessa was actively addressing her mental health issues instead of projecting them onto others. And I had found my voice, learning to establish boundaries and demand respect even from family. The journey hadn't been easy for any of us, but perhaps it had been necessary. Family relationships are complex, woven from threads of love, history, obligation, and sometimes hurt. The glass I switched that night had shattered more than just an anniversary celebration. It had broken open the carefully constructed illusions we'd all been maintaining. The truth, painful as it was, provided an opportunity for authentic healing, not just bandaged wounds that would inevitably reopen. Sometimes the hardest lesson is realizing that love alone isn't enough, that it must be paired with honesty, respect, and accountability to be truly healthy. As Vanessa embarks on her new life in Seattle, and I continue building mine here, I wonder if true forgiveness will eventually be possible. Not the kind that pretends harm never occurred, but the deeper forgiveness that acknowledges pain while choosing to move forward unburdened by resentment. I don't have that answer yet, but I'm open to discovering it, one day at a time. Has someone in your family ever betrayed your trust in a way that forced you to reevaluate your entire relationship? How did you navigate that difficult terrain? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe if this resonated with you and share with someone who might need to hear that setting boundaries with family is not only okay, but sometimes necessary for everyone's healing. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that even the most painful experiences can lead to unexpected growth when we face them with courage and honesty.